Welcome to Digital Hospitality. I am your host, Sean Walchef. This is a Cali BBQ Media production. We are so excited because we started 2017, back when nobody was listening to this show. We started this podcast with an inherent belief that there were other hospitality professionals throughout the world that wanted to improve their business, that we weren't the only ones that wanted to improve our business, that we were the only ones that actually believed in storytelling, believed in technology could improve our businesses, and believed that if we had the courage to just consistently tell stories and, more importantly, interview people that we respected and admired, that eventually we would build a community of people all over the globe. And here we are 7 years later. We have a rising tide of digital hospitality leaders that meet on LinkedIn every Wednesday and every Friday at 10 a.m. If you're listening to this, please join us on LinkedIn Live. You can connect with me there. But more importantly, I get to have great conversations multiple times a week with people that I respect and admire, that I find through content, through storytelling, through friends of friends. Today, I have the privilege of welcoming Bill Lindsey, who is the partner and co-founder of Cogswell. And Bill is an industry titan. He is somebody that I was so fortunate to meet in a tech group that we meet once a week with Matt Wampler of Clear Cogs. So Matt introduced me to Bill, and I started listening to Bill. And I started going, oh my gosh, this man has so much deep knowledge of restaurants, so much deep knowledge of technology. It's only a matter of time that I get him on Digital Hospitality. And here he is. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Thank you so much. What a great introduction. I appreciate that, Sean.
I am so happy to have you on. I'm going to start with a difficult question because that's my job. So I'm going to give you three numbers, and you need to guess what these numbers are.
All right.
61, 48, and 102.
61, 48, and 102? Wow. Well, 61, I'll take a guess. If my prime cost is 61, I'm circling the drain. 48, if I'm selling into 48 states with my software, I'm happy. And 102, if I'm fortunate and live to 102, maybe we'll repeat this podcast. How about that?
There you go. See, a storyteller at heart. No, what those numbers are those are the reactions that Bill got from his videos that I and our community inspired him to post on LinkedIn.
Very good. And yes, you did. I certainly credit you for that.
Let's start there. This is a storytelling podcast, so let's get uncomfortable and talk about the videos that you made for LinkedIn.
Okay.
Anybody that's listening to this, I want you to connect with Bill on LinkedIn specifically, because he's had the courage to do the things that we've been talking about for so long on this show. But I'm so impressed that not only that you did them, but the community of people that love you, that respect you, that want to see more of you. So share a little bit with our audience what happened.
Oh, thank you. Very kind again. So just to bring everybody up to speed, I was listening to Sean on a different meeting, Zoom meeting, the tech meeting that he mentioned. And I started thinking to myself, this guy makes sense. And the thing that you said that really triggered me is don't worry about it. Nobody's worried about any of that stuff that you're worried about. Just get out there. And if you make a mistake, then do it again tomorrow and don't make a mistake. So I set long and hard and I said, all right, I can't just do one. I've got to have some kind of a series in mind. So I took 4 fundamental values of Cogswell and turned them into 3 videos, a couple 3 minutes each one, and just talked about what it is that we do and what makes us different. And recorded those, put them up online, and was absolutely stunned at the reactions that I got. So I certainly credit you for that. And I have a few more in mind that I intend to do now that I'm back from the National Restaurant Show. I was going to try to do something at the NRA, and it just seemed like it was just too much going on to try to do that as well. So thank you very much for the encouragement in doing that. I've received a lot of very positive feedback and a few leads along the way. We've had some people reach out. I had one where a guy immediately responded, I like it, get in touch with me. And so it was very effective.
Well, let's talk about the National Restaurant Association show. How many years have
Sure.
you been going, and why do you continue to go?
Let's see, at least 30. I've been going to that show most of my adult life. I've been in restaurants, one form of technology or running and building restaurants, all of my life with a very brief career as a casino craps dealer when I moved to Las Vegas and couldn't get a job managing a restaurant and didn't want to go back to waiting tables. So I've been going to the NRA show forever, and it's amazing to me that that many people show up. What is it, like 100,000 people?
The official number from the show was 58,000.
58,000.
Yeah.
It felt like twice that many, and I know you were there and felt the same thing. To me, the best part of NRA is I have a new person working with me named Nina Whelan. And Nina's been in restaurants all of her life, but she's never been to the National Restaurant Show. So we walked into the show, we went into the main lobby, and we took a look at the North Hall. And I said, by the way, this is the small one. The big hall's behind us over on the south side.
Yep.
And when you realize the scope of this thing, I do love the fact that they finally created a tech pavilion about 15, maybe 20 years ago. We used to be in between the tamales and the cookie scoopers. And there was like food waste and our trash cans filling up, and we're trying to do product demonstrations for technology. So at least now we kind of have a corner that we can all relegate ourselves to.
Yeah, I think for me, going to the show, I've run Cali Barbecue for 16 years, and it took me 13 years to get out of my restaurant to actually be able to attend the show. But it also gives me size and scope of the industry that we're in. Sometimes you forget how many different restaurants there are across the globe. I mean, we're not even talking about just the United States or, California, where my restaurant's located. We're talking about a global impact, and the world is getting much smaller because of things like this, what you and I talking now. I mean, have we even met in person? I don't think we have.
I don't know that we have.
Yeah.
I was hoping to see you at
but I feel like Bill's my friend. Like I can call Bill and get advice because of the digital tools that we have.
It's very true. It is true. And it's funny that you ask it the way that you do, because I do the same thing. It's like, have we ever met in person? People that I've known and know well, and really can't remember whether we've actually hugged or shaked hands. So, yeah.
Bring me back to the beginning of, you worked for Micros. Is that correct?
I was at Micros. I was the managing director of the Leisure and Entertainment Group for a few years.
Okay.
So casinos, cruise ships, hotels, theme parks, stadiums.
Were you always fascinated with technology? I mean, when did
I'll give you the short story.
Yeah, give us the.
I am a self-educated person. I say to this day that I went to the College of Dishroom Knowledge, and everything I needed to know about restaurants I learned in my first few years, starting as a dishwasher and working my way through the organization. And I managed to find my way to Las Vegas in the early late 1970s. Ended up working as a crap dealer for a couple of years until I could get a job in the restaurant company of my choice. And my job was to design, build, open, and operate all the new bars and restaurants, dance halls, different entertainment complexes. And we got up to 5 casinos, Sean, and we were armed mostly with number 2 pencils, and it was just overwhelming. And so we got into technology because there was none. PCs were just starting to become something that you might be able to play a game on, but they weren't really business focused yet. So I had a great idea on how to better manage all of the casino food and beverage operations through a computerized system. And we hired a company that wrote gaming software because it was the only company we knew. And we built it on a platform called a System 36. It's IBM mid-range computers, bigger than 2 desks, this computer in an air-conditioned room on a platform. And the company that took that job was owned by a woman who's now my wife, and that's how I met her.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, I like to say I came by it honestly, and 2 things happened. One of them was I fell in love with her and realized if I stayed in casino food and beverage, I would never see her.
Yeah.
And the other one was I'm looking at this technology and saying, there's nobody out there like me that, the way I explain it is there's too many people selling technology to restaurants that never bust a table and have no idea what the reality is in a kitchen. And everything looks good theoretically, but few things practically will work.
Yeah.
So I've been developing this kind of software either directly or with partners or through other companies now since, the mid 1980s. So yeah, quite a bit of history with it.
Do you remember getting your job at Compete?
I do. In fact, I was representing Compete's biggest customer. I was a consultant for Dave & Buster's, and Buster was very, very generous with me. He had a couple of
Buster.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Buster's not only a real guy, but he's a dear man, and unfortunately, we lost him last year. But Dave was a 21 dealer in Las Vegas and went to UNLV, which I found out after I met him. But I was hired as a consultant at Dave & Buster's. And the reason was I sold them a DOS-based inventory system that was basically supported, written, owned by the 3 guys that I'm partnered with today in Cogswell. So this is a DOS-based system, and we put it in Dave & Buster's about 1989, 1990. And they brought me back as a consultant to help them find something new in the year 2000. So 10 years later, they were still on a DOS-based system. So my job was to find a replacement for the software I put in there 10 years earlier. And I met Harry Barkerding, who was the original founder of Compete. There were like 4 people in the company at that time. And so my job was to replace the software. And I told Harry, I said, you don't have near what we need, but if you'll listen, I can help you get there and we'll roll this out to Dave & Buster's. So I did that and then joined Compete after we finished rolling that out. A complete redesign of the inventory system from the ground up, a different architecture. It was a major leap forward. Interestingly, the inventory controller at Dave & Buster's now works for us now at Cogswell. She's our first receiving auditor. So we built our own audit team to make sure that invoice data flows accurately and pack sizes are correctly reflected in our software. And we went to Joy as our first auditor. Joy Bell is her name. And she's still with me today. Couldn't be more pleased to have her looking over our shoulder to make sure that the data is good.
Hey everyone, Avi Gorin, CEO and co-founder of Marquee, and I want to talk about the customer journey for a second. You never know as a restaurant owner where your guests are truly coming from. End of the day, we do see some patterns around 2 types of search behaviors: direct versus discovery. Direct search, for an example, would be jumping into Google and saying Cali barbecue hours, right? I know where I want to go to eat, but I'm missing a key detail. I need a little bit more information. Discovery, which is the bulk of searches, is barbecue in San Diego, restaurants near me, takeout near me, right? One of the best ways to be found for more discovery searches is leveraging keywords. Reviews are basically free content for you to leverage. Think about keywords that are relevant to your brand, your location, and include as many of those in your review responses as possible, right? How can you go about doing this? Let's set up reports, utilize tools like Google Trends, find out what's going on in your area and how you can help leverage these keywords and review responses, because someone else is doing that, right? If you need some examples, you could do anything from including summer menu, gluten-free menu, leverage specific menu items like the dreaded and beloved spice pumpkin anything in your review responses. right? Let them know what's coming. Let your reviewers know something they should come back and try. And of course, if all of this just seems overwhelming and daunting because you're already running a restaurant and have enough on your plate, just leverage the team at Marquee to do this for you. We handle all of this. We're experts in this space. We can automate this so it's just another item that you know you are taking care of. Again, that's marquee.com, marquii.com. No you. However, we did recently buy marquii.com, so if you do misspell it, we got you. You'll still find us. We can still help you.
What was the idea to jump off the cliff and to found Cogswell?
Compete did very well, but we got to the point where we had really tapped the all-in-one solution to the point where we realized that we had no way to innovate. You can't just take, I call it a three-legged sack race. It's not the most efficient way to get down the hill, but at least we're all together in this thing. And if we were to try to build Cogswell in Compete, we'd have to fundamentally change the database architecture, which would be very disruptive and risky. And so you kind of have to rebuild from the ground up. And when we decided to move Compete into the browser, the way I like to tell the story, I'm not sure if this is how he tells it, but Harry got a look at the valuation on the company and decided he'd much rather have a very large boat. So Harry got the boat of his dreams and lives happily ever after between New Orleans and Newport, Rhode Island. And those of us that were left at Compete were in the hands of private equity, and it was not a very good fit. And so we ended up leaving and decided during that period where we couldn't compete or, solicit, that maybe there's a better way to handle inventory control. Rather than trying to tackle the entire world, we took what we thought to be the biggest problem, which is managing food cost. And for anybody on this podcast that's ever set up an inventory system, I don't have to tell you, it's one of the more miserable jobs you'll ever have in your career. And we decided maybe there's a better way to handle this. And I was actually doing strategic advisory work for Plate IQ, my good friend Bavuk. He approached me and asked if I would come and help them with Plate IQ. And I contacted the guys, my friends who are now my partners, and we all put our heads together and said, this is pretty good data. This plugs the hole between EDI and all the vendors at the back door with paper invoices. And so I have a very talented partner named Mike Brown, who is the technical resource behind Cogswell. And Mike and my other partner, Glenn Nelson, who is more the customer service, product visionary type guy, they put their heads together and built out an architecture that we've matured into a product now that we call Cogswell. So we really did it because, if you were to list all the things that people can't be successful with, it takes too long to set up. So we can set up a restaurant inventory in a couple of days. Mm-hmm. The pack sizes are too hard to manage. So we built a standard packaging library and mapped all the vendor data. I like to say the kids call it AI. We call it old-fashioned data mapping. So with just what we find on invoices, either EDI or scanned image, Cogswell can build out an inventory database with all the items and pack sizes for customers, can actually accomplish it in a couple of hours, but then we have our audit process where we comb through the data and make sure that it's all correct. So we eliminated that. We eliminated importing or actually typing in all the menu items. We connect to POS like Toast, and for every menu item and modifier, we create the corresponding recipe item. And we don't know the ingredients, but we do build the ingredients. So with all the items that we find on invoices, we create the items that people will fill in as the recipe ingredients. So all those things, quality of data we solve with an audit, setup we do ourselves for our customers, pack sizes we've standardized, normalized, and mapped together. Those things that I call the choke points that cause people to either fail or just downright hate their inventory software, we solved for. And we're staying laser focused on food and bar cost and not trying to do too many things. Stay in our lane, be the best in class for what we do, and interface with any accounting system. And I'll add this, and then I'll stop on the sales pitch part. We map every single accounting entry that we used to do internally and Compete we make in anybody's accounting system, whether it's Restaurant 365 or Compete or NetSuite, our good friends at NetSuite and Intact, QuickBooks Online. So everybody gets that same benefit through the API integration that we provide.
What has been the biggest challenge for you as a tech founder?
Boy, that really is a good question. Consensus is difficult. I like to feel that my opinion is very valid and based on a lot of experience. But when faced with decisions with others that also feel the same way, that have the same level of experience, we spend a lot of time grinding on exactly what's the best way to solve the problem. It's not for lack of inspiration. It's really for lack of consensus that'll determine how things move and what gets done. You can hire the right people, you can train people, you can make customers happy if you do a really, really good job. But trying to figure out how to move things forward in an orderly manner is a difficult process when you're dealing with something that has to be built. People have to be trained on it. It's got to be supportable. Users have to understand it when they see it. So the hardest part about tech, food was easy. Hey, this tastes good.
Yeah.
I can make a sandwich that I like and I can sell it to others and know that they will like it too. But with technology, Sean, as you know, some people like Mac and some people like PC. They're both right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great discussion point, and it's something that how do you create something that is usable, not just because it's an app that goes on a phone. I mean, I have 87 different apps on my phone, but what matters is the ones that I click every single day to run my business, whether it's the media business, whether it's the barbecue business, whether it's my own personal tech stack. So like, how do you create useful products that people want to use, that they continue to use, that get updated and they're happy about the updates, not upset about the updates?
Yeah.
Why did you update something that worked so well before?
We've all been there. And I think that's the promise of AI. I think the promise of AI is instead of silos of apps, there will be an overreaching technology that knows how to take advantage of all those different applications and all the data that they collect in some meaningful way. People are building personal AIs now, which I find very, very compelling because I want the answers I want. I don't want the answers that somebody else thinks that I should want. Steve Jobs, I think, said it best. I don't ask people what they want because they have no idea. I show them what they want. There aren't a lot of those people out there that can really do that. And I think that AI will be the next best thing to, an inspirational innovator, somebody that can understand what your needs and what satisfies you and what your interactive skill set is, and plug you into the information that you need to do your job better.
That's very interesting what you said about Steve Jobs, because one of my favorite quotes is from Rick Rubin, the phenomenal.
I love Rick.
He wrote a book recently, and one of his quotes from his book is that the audience comes last.
Yes.
And people are like, how is that possible? You're creating music. The most creative thing you can give is for the audience. And he goes, no, the audience comes last. And part of the creative process is understanding that, like, if you speak your truth, to Steve Jobs' point, to Rick Rubin's point, when somebody's creating something that's phenomenal, they know that they're solving a problem for them that is also a bigger problem.
So well put. And, to plug his podcast, Tetragrammaton is one of my favorites. I was listening to a couple of his over the holiday weekend.
Amazing.
So, it's funny that you bring up Rick Rubin, but, he's a really good example too, because, Rick Rubin doesn't read music. He's not an engineer. He's really not an engineer. He's an enabler.
Yeah.
He's this guy that just kind of listens to what it is that you're trying to do and helps you find your truth so that you can actually deliver on that. And that's so remarkable in today's world where everybody's trying to tell you what you should think and how you should feel about things. So anyway, I could go on for a while about Rick Rubin, but I share your enthusiasm for him and his book.
What are the things that excite you when you wake up in the morning when you're building clear Cogswell?
You know, gosh, it's an interesting thing. I love doing product demonstrations. I love showing people the way. It's like, here, follow me. Let me show you. This isn't as hard as you think it is. This is how you can run a successful restaurant. And a short story, at Compete, we had the challenge of trying to explain complexity to restaurant people, everything from accounting and payroll and labor and food cost and receivables and payables and bank recs and all this stuff. So I spent a holiday weekend drawing a diagram, and I colored it, and I had arrows and lines that explained how the whole thing mapped together. And it was a data map for what we did at Compete. And it was a little hokey, it was a little corny, but it became the center of my demonstration. And I would tell people, look, I'll show you every feature function, but look, this is how it works. And we did a users conference about 2 years after I started doing that. And the CFO for a major restaurant company, and I won't plug her, she knows who she is. She stood up at the users conference and said, "This diagram changed my life. I struggled all my career with the complexity of what we do. And then Bill showed up and put this slide, and it was the only slide he had. And it was, look, this is your future state. I can tell you how to get there, but this is where you want to be." She said, "I bought into that vision, and my company runs much better now for it." And that was one of the greatest moments of my career when she did that. So I reflect on that now. And when I'm doing product demonstrations with people, and you can hear people start to, oh, you hear these little exclamations in the background, that fuels me and gives me tremendous satisfaction that I'm actually helping somebody. Because, at the end of the day, it's not about selling software. It's about helping people run their companies more productively and more profitably and maybe easier. And when you find a way to do that, all the rest of it is just tactics.
What does the product demonstration of the future look like?
Yeah, that is a great question. I mentioned Nina earlier. I've been training Nina for almost a year now on how to do a product demonstration. And I keep telling her the same thing. I have no idea how or why any of this works. It's just how I do things. You have to develop your own style and your own vocabulary. Copy anything that you like, but we're all different, and you may connect with some people and not connect with others. But I think the problem that I see, Sean, is people go on websites. I had this happen to me like 2 weeks ago. I got in a demo with a guy, and I was starting to explain why Cogswell's different. And he says, "I've been to your website. I've seen all this. Do you have anything different to show me that I can't find on your website?" And it caused me to stop and say, the website's kind of a carrot. It's to get you interested enough to see how it all works. If you just take the word of a website, it's easier, it's better, it's faster, it's more intuitive. You'll never quite get there. So, maybe AI plays into that, but I really do think it's a personal connection between the person that's showing the way. Follow me, let me show you how all this works. This is, a process that you can do as well, is always going to be the best way to have people. You need a little bit of an emotional attachment to the software, because it gets ugly when you're changing how people run their businesses, even if you try not to be intrusive. I follow a few people. One person in particular that I've always been inspired by is a guy named Paul Saginaw. He's in Las Vegas now, but he was one of the founders of Zingerman's up in Ann Arbor. And I sat through a presentation with Paul, and he said something I'll forever credit him for. In every great project, there comes a period of doubt and blame. I knew this was never going to work, and it's your fault for taking us here. And if you can learn how to survive that stage of doubt and blame when things start to get rough, and inspire people to come on over the hill, the grass is greener on the other side, at least you're heading downhill now, you can be much more successful.
That's amazing. Well, Bill,
And if Paul's out there, I love him for that and many other things that he said that have inspired me in my career.
well, the persistence is something that my grandfather taught me so many years ago. The things that I remember, we always say, stay curious, get involved, ask for help. And usually we forget to ask for help when it gets tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Was your grandfather in the restaurant business?
He wasn't. Well, he got us into the restaurant business. He was a medical doctor. He immigrated here. He was born as a farm boy, immigrated over here, had a thriving medical practice, and then got into real estate development. And one of the properties that he developed was the restaurant that I now own. So
no kidding.
He leased it out to a woman. It was a breakfast place, and then we took over when I was in sixth grade. I started bussing tables and washing dishes at that restaurant and that's the restaurant that I now own. But the irony in all of the restaurant and all of this stuff is that everything comes back to storytelling. It comes back to the, Bulgarian farm boy that wanted to. I mean, I worked with him for 3 years at the end of his life to self-publish this book, The Harvest. And now the work that I do with this show and all the shows that we do is helping entrepreneurs, business owners to tell their story,
And where did he come from?
He came from Bulgaria.
Bulgaria.
A village in Bulgaria, yeah.
So my grandfather came from Cyprus.
Wow.
And came to Southern Virginia, opened a restaurant on a dirt road with a 99-year lease, and everybody laughed at him until about 3 months after he opened, they announced the new highway system would be going right in front of this building he leased on a dirt road.
Beautiful.
He did quite well, but I never met my grandfather. He died before I was born. But I had 2 pictures of his restaurant that were in the paper. And I did a restaurant in Las Vegas called Mary's Diner. It was an old 50s style Pullman diner. And I used those 2 pictures and I picked out as many elements as I could. And I incorporated them into the design of the restaurant. And when we opened the restaurant, I brought my mom down and said, do you recognize any of this? Because she grew up upstairs from that very restaurant. Wow. Interestingly, my mom's story, she never learned to cook. She married my dad, and she's like this restaurant child that would know all this stuff, and she had never learned to cook because women were not allowed in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. You have no place in the kitchen. Go out front, talk to the customers, run the cash register. Yep. So it's interesting, these cultural things that come to us, but that's probably how we both ended up in the restaurant business. It was just always something I knew that I thought I could do.
Yeah. So we're going to ask you your personal tech stack. This is a part of the smartphone storytelling segment of the show. I do this on most of my shows because I want to learn, are you an Android or an iPhone user?
I'm an iPhone.
iPhone, which version?
I think I have an iPhone 12 or 13.
Okay.
Not the most recent one. I'm always like 2 builds.
When do you 2 builds back? When do you upgrade?
Yes, somewhere in there. I'm usually back 1 or 2 because the price is right. It's almost as good.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Do you prefer email or text message?
I prefer email.
Email. How many emails do you get a day?
Too many.
How many? Give me an estimate.
I probably get 100 email a day, and that's not a lot of that is just information. But I build my own filters. So when my emails come in, they sort into different buckets.
Perfect.
People will tell you that I get back to them very quickly.
What's your favorite bucket?
My favorite bucket is prospect.
Prospect. Like a true business owner.
That's right. If something hits my prospect bucket, I'm going to respond probably in the next 10 minutes. That's even fantastic. If it's, I'll get back to you with more information. I figure it's hard for people to send messages, and if they immediately get a response back, it encourages them to send more.
Do you prefer phone calls or text messages?
I prefer phone calls.
Do you leave voicemails?
I will leave a voicemail depending on who I'm calling. If they're an older person, I'll leave a voicemail. If they're a younger person, I will text them and say, hey, I got your voicemail.
Perfect. Do you use Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze?
I'm going to say Apple Maps. My niece is engaged to a guy who's on the Apple Map team and is a senior player.
Very
and
cool.
She was on that team for a while, so go Apple.
There you go. I love it. I haven't heard Apple Maps, but that you got someone on the inside. Root for them all you can for sure. What is your most used apps? Frequently used apps.
Gosh, on my phone,
Yep, on your phone.
Spotify, Sirius, certainly email and text and things like that. But as far as other maps or other apps, I'm big on LinkedIn. I like it on my phone when I'm sitting at a light. I know you're not supposed to use your phone, but if I'm just bored, I'll usually flip through and see what's doing. But Open Table. I'm trying to think of the other ones that I use more frequently, but those are probably the most. I'm a big browser guy. If you say a word to me and I don't recognize the word, I immediately plug it in to find out what it is.
In
And
what
that leads
browser?
me on
Chrome?
some kind of
Chrome or Safari? Chrome or Safari?
I like Safari on the iPhone, but I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Chrome user on my PC.
Okay, awesome. Are you using ChatGPT on your phone?
I am. I'm trying to. Let's put it that way. It reminds me of when the internet was getting started, and I got a browser, and I'm sitting in front of it with the world at my fingertips, and I'm like,
Don't know
okay, what
to
do I
type
do?
in.
What do I ask? What question do I have? And I talked to a friend of mine, and he set me straight. He said, it's a browser, not a toaster. So ask it anything and then follow from there where it leads you. And I kind of learned to explore that way. We used to go to the library, and the Dewey Decimal System told us where to find that book.
Correct.
We didn't just start reading a book that linked to another book that linked to another book.
Yep.
I had to learn that. And once I did, it changed everything for me. Tell me something I don't know, especially something I never thought to ask.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Bill, we really appreciate it. What's the best place for people to find you, to connect with you, to get a product demo of Cogswell?
If they go to cogswell.com, COGS hyphen, we had to put the hyphen in there,
Yep.
WELL, so cogs-well. There's a form there, a contact form. You can also, if you really want to just get to me, it's bill@cogswell.com, COGS-WELL.com, and I promise I'll get back to you promptly.
And we will put a link for Bill's LinkedIn so that you can follow his videos.
Thank you.
On LinkedIn. Bill, we truly appreciate it. If you guys are listening, please join us on LinkedIn Live every Wednesday, every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. If you're in UK, it's 6 p.m. We've got a great community of digital hospitality leaders. We want you to join us. I'm weirdly available at Sean P. Walchef, ShawnPWalchef. Instagram's probably the fastest, but I'm pretty fast on LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook, all the platforms. We appreciate you. Thank you. Stay curious, get involved, and don't be afraid to ask for help. We'll catch you guys next week.